As a young girl, I was exposed to a lot of things, and one thing I was exposed to was a friend of my mom's. She was a great person, and she still is. And she works 2 jobs to be able to pay for the things that she needs. The only different thing about her is that she didn't look like a typical woman. She pretty much looked like a guy, she acted like a guy, and she even dressed like a guy. And I kind of realized that she was a lesbian. And I was pretty sure that my mom supported her in every single way, and I did too. And I figured that if she ever wanted to get married, that she should be able to. But for other countries, that really isn't the case. The Australian government hasn't made any laws to legalize same-sex marriage. In 1961, the Australian government made the Marriage Act, and it stated that gay or same-sex marriages would be seen as invalid. For these same-sex couples, they were still unable to marry and were discriminated. In the Marriage Act, it defines a marriage as the union of a man and woman to the exclusion of all others, voluntarily entered for life. It was added in 2004 that same-sex marriages from other countries was not going to be recognized as marriages in Australia. They were being told that their marriage was not real, even though they had gotten married somewhere else and that they had the paperwork. Sadly for these couples, the Australian government did not accept the fact that they were married just because they were homosexual couples. In Australia, they had discriminated against same-sex couples and their children. At the end of 2008, the Australian government made 84 laws that discriminated same-sex couples. These couples were not allowed to marry, and on top of that, they were discriminated from things that they needed or deserved. For 5 days in December of 2013, same-sex couples were allowed to get married in Canberra, Australia, but it was quickly shut down by the government, and for those who did get married, had their marriages seen as invalid or annulled. And for the 27 couples that did get married, they must have been shocked and angry. They were having their rights of marriage taken away from them, all because they weren't straight. Recently in February, a judge had thrown out a challenge to the nation's ban on same-sex marriage. The judge ruled that it doesn't amount to gender discrimination. The judge wrote, "A man cannot enter into the state of marriage as defined with another man, just as a woman cannot enter into the state of marriage with another woman." The judge is stripping the rights of these same-sex couples. Although there was a bill to allow same-sex marriage, the government hasn't accepted it yet. The Australian Marriage Equality lists in its website the nations and the US states that allow same-sex marriage and other countries that have recognized it. The website says it's embarrassing that in Utah, that is primarily a Mormon state, same-sex marriages can marry, and also in Oklahoma, but in Australia, same-sex couples cannot. For these other places that allow a man to marry multiple women, also allow homosexual couples to be married, but not in Australia. There is the Australian Capital Territory that was the first organization to help the recognition of same-sex couples that was founded in 2013. The government also made an amendment called the Discrimination Act that made the discrimination of sexual orientation, gender identity, intersex status, and relationship status unlawful in Australia. The government still has not made same-sex marriages legal, but they are getting more recognition. Recently, last year in November, a bill for same-sex marriage has been released. It is said that the bill would allow Australians to marry regardless of gender, sexual orientation, and gender identity. Although in Australia same-sex couples are still being discriminated, they are still doing what they can to help stop it. The government is saying more about same-sex marriage. The sexual orientation law expert Kees Waldis suggests that the government take steps to reduce and slowly get rid of discrimination of same-sex couples. The 5 steps are decriminalizing consensual sex between adults of the same sex, equalizing the ages of consent, enacting anti-discrimination legalization, legally recognizing same-sex relationships, and legally recognizing same-sex parents. Australia is trying to make a change for these same-sex couples, but they haven't made same-sex marriage legal yet. Australia should really take more advice from these other countries that have allowed same-sex marriage and think about how their future would be different allowing more same-sex marriage. As the world changes, I think a lot of things should change too, as allowing same-sex marriage. Thank you for watching.